1340 KVGC. Douglas Viviani's on the phone with me. Everything old is new again. You can hear it every Saturday and Sunday evenings right here on KVGC. It's kind of the flagship of our evening programming. We kick off Saturday and Sunday evenings every week with he and David Cohen with America's pop culture show. How we got where we are, where we came from, where we've been, and kind of like the Pilgrims. Anyway, I don't know why I threw that in there, but it sounded funny. So, Douglas, good morning, and a little bit of sadness in the music world today.
Yes, well, I don't know, an odd new bit of news I got there last night. We all did that Prince has passed away. And later on, news came out that it might be drug related. Meanwhile, he was professing to be off of drugs and was sort of an evangelist for that kind of a thing. So it's a little odd. But I went back and I remember seeing, like I grew up, and I think you did too, with Prince and now his evolution of his career. And to me, he was okay, and I appreciated the music and whatever, but it wasn't the Beatles to me, so to speak. But then I saw him play a solo on while my guitar gently weeps, which you can catch on YouTube, which was from the Hall of Fame induction, and he played with Tom Petty, and he played with Jeff Lynne and Steve Winwood, and he did a guitar solo that kind of, it was over the top, tremendous, and I never knew he was such a tremendous guitar player. Did you?
No, and I've heard that same exact thing from a number of my friends who actually saw him in concert. And, over the last 24 hours, people have been bringing up reminiscent about it. And everyone says, to a person, what a showman.
Yeah, exactly. I saw him in Madison Square Garden in the 90s, and I didn't know what to expect, and he whipped that crowd into a frenzy. He was playing the piano, he played the drums, he played guitar. When he played the guitar, he was demonstrative and bent over backwards, but not a wrong note in the batch. I mean, the guy was extremely talented. Holy smokes! It just brought to mind to me also some others that sort of play. They're known for being a band, let's say, but I think you could say underrated for not really being recognized as someone that has mastered their instrument, if you follow what I'm saying.
Sure. Right.
Like the guy from Leonard Skinner that played that solo on Freebird on the piano. Mm-hmm. Billy Powell, who passed away just last year also. I don't know if you're attuned to that or not, but to me, that's like the most incredible piano solo that fits into a rock and roll song that I've ever heard. Yeah. And then you got John Entwistle with The Who, if you remember him. Mm-hmm. You've got John Bonham with Led Zeppelin, just overlooked. And then, of course, Freddie Mercury from Queen. I mean, his range, he was very demonstrative, and people kind of maybe gotten turned off a little bit here and there. But, man, he could sing like crazy. He could do 7 octaves, from what I understand. Which means really low to really high, and never was off pitch. I don't know. It just brought to mind to me these kind of things that sometimes these people are returning to performers and are in bands, but you don't realize how tremendous they are on their instruments.
I was watching a documentary on. It was one of these weird like Sundance channels. I don't know what I just ran across the last half hour of it Tuesday, I think, in the middle of the afternoon, and it was filmed. The Rolling Stones were just becoming, when the British invasion came, the Beatles were the number, and for about a year and a half or so, the Beatles, the only people over their shoulder were maybe the Dave Clark Five or Herman's Hermits, and right. Then the Rolling Stones. Well, this was filmed just about the time of maybe just around Satisfaction. Maybe it was just they played that for the first time in a concert, and it was just raw black and white footage, but I didn't realize you don't think about it, what great musicians like Keith Richards and Bill Wyman and the whole group was. I mean, we just think of them as old men now, and but back in the day they were pretty good musicians.
Absolutely, and it's just amazing to me that sometimes, like a guy like Prince went over the top with the performance, and I think that got lost in the shuffle. I don't know why I go on about it, other than I tried to play instruments, as you know, myself, and it's a mystifying talent to me, and to sort of be able to master it, and then on top of that, the mastery is lost in what else you're doing, which is performing and writing music, is unbelievable to me.
And if you think about it, he played the piano too. He played the guitar, and I think he didn't he play all the instruments on the Purple Rain album?
Yes, he also played the drums. He played every instrument on most of his albums.
Yeah.
Never needed the band, the Revolution, except to perform live, of course. So on most, if not all of his albums, he performed every single instrument. The only other person I know that did that was Paul McCartney. Once in a while, he did that when Beatles came back from the Maharishi, and they were kind of the White Album, and he did back in the USSR. He played all the instruments on that, if you recall that. But other than that, that's the only person I've ever heard of could even do that. It's amazing.
I was walking into the building this morning, and the first question I was going to ask you was, did Prince have any influence on the news?
I hate to say this, none whatsoever. We kind of didn't. I know, we were younger. I was like 17, 18, 19 when he was doing Purple Rain and all that stuff, and it just didn't resonate with me at all. I appreciated it for sure, but I didn't recognize the talent, as we were just talking about, in terms of his instrumentality, and I didn't really go for the music all that much. I don't know. It was one of these things back in the day. It was played on the radio so much, you kind of got tired of it, if that makes sense.
You know, I'm going to confess to something here. I'm with you. I didn't appreciate Prince until a little later on in his career, and then you look back to what he did, and now, of course, we're going to be hearing him for the next week. Every radio station in America and around the world will be playing him. But there's a lot of people like that, and one of the I'm ashamed to say this, but I had no appreciation for Elvis until after Elvis passed away, and I started listening to him, and you think, this guy was the real deal. He was good.
Yes, I think the part of Elvis that kind of made you feel that way, at least it made me feel that way, is he was just a smidge before the Beatles, and then, the idea of writing your own music really took fancy, and so he didn't write anything. Yeah. So in my immature perception of him, it was, he's just a singer, and a performer, but so what? But then when you mature, you see the talent of his range, and how he could do gospel, he could do country, he could do rock and roll, all tremendously. The only thing is he was stuck on the idea that, he had to get the right song. He couldn't write his own. So in every album he does, there's a couple of flops,
Right, right.
And of course, the other thing is those movies, unfortunately, didn't feature the best of his song catalog. So if you watched all those movies as I did as a kid growing up, coming home from school, it was on TV as a rerun in the 70s, sort of lose that shiny, muster, if you will. Does that make sense? Yeah,
absolutely.
But now when you just listen to the music and listen to what he did, even on My Way, he did a version of My Way that's unbelievable. So
yeah, sometimes I wonder, JD and I joke, he'll be 34 on Sunday, actually, and we joke, so JD, do you think when you're sitting around the house when you're 60 years old, 65, 70, your buddies you'll be listening to Snoop Dogg and Dre and, NWA and all this kind of music, and that'll be your oldies, because it's hard to think about that. And I wonder if, will your children someday hear Prince when they're in their 20s or 30s and go, wow, this guy, Prince?
I think so. I think it's happening now. I was in court the other day, and I had an infant's compromise, which means I had to meet with a young child. And long story short, the 14-year-old girl was wearing a Beatles shirt. This is 2 days ago, and I talked to her about it. And she was a huge Beatles fan, and she knew just as much, if not more, about the Beatles than I did in some way. And I looked it up. Right now, because the catalog has been held back till just recently, the Beatles are the #1 seller on iTunes. So, just as an example, not to say that's the only band, but isn't that incredible? iTunes is mostly people 30 and under buying music or listening to music that way, and they're on to the Beatles.
Hey, here's some news. Earlier on, actually late Thursday, we flipped the switch on 96.5, and we'll be testing. We're not solidly on the air yet, but we are testing the signal, and hopefully by Monday or Tuesday, our regular programming will be on 96.5.
That's tremendous.
Well.
Everyone in their car has to preset that on their car preset, right?
Yep.
And does that mean, just practically speaking, if you're in the car or home, I guess, which is recommended, which station is recommended to? It's a simulcast, right?
Yeah.
Station, so which would you recommend?
Whichever you enjoy. I'm not going to get into that argument right now.
And I'll tell you, I have to say that I listen from New York sometimes, and it's a goof, but to say this, but it's sincere. I really do enjoy your morning show when you interview people, like when there's the fair in town, and you interviewed that fellow that made the whirly, I forget
the Gravitron. The Gravitron.
Right, the Gravitron. When you announce even down to the announcing of the school lunch, it gives me a kick. I throw back to what the lunch is, although I never had chicken cordon bleu and things that are being made now for lunch, chicken franchise and steak Diane. But
honestly,
I love the show. We love being on KVGC. We're now probably a year and a half, almost. We started in January of 2015 with your station, and you're one of the first ones that took fancy to our show, and we're now on in 30 stations and growing. And I have to say, I tip my hat to KVGC and to you for recognizing a talented, what would you say, a show that's different, that you'd have to kind of take a chance on to see. So I would say you're talented in acknowledging and recognizing good radio. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
Backhanded compliment, but I mean it. I really do appreciate it, and I love that morning show. The way you've been doing that show for years and years, and you've perfected the science, really.
The whole genre of the radio station is designed after a radio station that I used to listen to in the 60s when I would visit my grandparents.
Interesting.
And Douglas, that is what is going to save radio, with like iHeart, $27 billion in debt, and all these other big companies that leveraged everything to get into the radio business and weren't actually real broadcasters, are and have cast a bad light on radio. Radio is the form of communicating. It's talking over the, we kind of use this a lot. It's like you and me talking over the back fence or sitting on the stoop at night just visiting, and we don't try to sound professional. I've been doing this for 40 years. I can sound professional if I'd like, okay? We just try to sound, because we're the local people. If people see me in the store, they see me, I coach their kids are my friends, I'm friends with them. My family works here. And that's what radio has to get back to succeed.
Right, there has to be a good percentage of what's on the air that is a local show. For example, I get up in the morning, I listen to, something on the way to work, and there are a number of shows in New York and New York City that are national shows. Now, I love national shows. Of course, we're a national show, or trying to be, but we're like the two guys at the bar, that are arguing over which is the best Disney princess, just having fun. But sometimes if you're listening, especially in the morning, to a morning show that doesn't have a connection to your community, you see you're kind of like, it's okay, but I'm not sticking in here to listen to something that's something about the country. I want to hear my local information, what's happening this weekend, and so forth, if that makes sense.
Exactly.
So I think that's what you're saying in some ways, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Like you say, the school lunch menus, we do obituaries, lost pets, and we find that people that come from metropolitan areas that move to here love it because they don't have it. They don't have it. So.
And it makes radio fun, and that's what we try to do as well. Again, we're not local, but the topics we talk about are so local. Everyone knows these topics, so I think we have a nice little niche or an advantage in some ways in that, whatever we're talking about, let's say it was just, Terry Winter on vinyl and or talking about, like I said, the Disney Princess or what's the best TV sitcom of all time. Grandpa can listen to that with his grandson, and they can have the argument you love to have and just have some fun with it. And that's what I love about the radio, and I love about your station. station is that you never lost that, you never, or you've always had that in the back of your mind when you do a remote at the fair, let's say, you start interviewing people there,
right,
Or
right.
even that lady that comes on with the what's the best deal for the day in the grocery store. Let me get that one.
Grocery outlet, bargain market.
There you go.
Douglas, we've got just a few minutes. I hate to do this to you. Maybe about 2 minutes. You want to give us a quick synopsis of this week's show?
Absolutely. With the successful experiment of the live performance of Sound of Music back in 2013 with Carrie Underwood, if you remember that, 2014's Peter Pan, 2015's The Wiz, most recently Grease at 2016. We've seen a plethora of plays that are being performed live on live TV. Now, that seems like it might be something new, but it's not. Back in the day, there was Saturday Night Live, and even before that, the radio and television broadcast the 36 Summer Olympics live from Berlin. So we're going to take a look and see about live television, the development of it, how it's ended in about 58, and how now is a resurgence now. And in some ways, trying to figure out why they're doing it and is it worthwhile.
I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. There would be like these CBS Playhouse and these black and white. I can remember watching Kindescope of them.
Every show is live. Your show of shows, if you remember that, with Sid Caesar, and even before then, the infancy of television, all the radio stars came over, Jack Benny, and every show was live.
Right.
Amazing.
Right.
If you ever see, it's my what's it called? My Favorite Year with Peter O'Toole. That shows you a little bit of that. It's a throwback. It was a great movie to see. But anyway, so that's what we're going to hit upon. I think it's a great topic, and we're going to do a little history lesson, which I think is fun as we do that, but also get into a nice discussion as to live, and also performing our show live, which we do, and what does it entail, and what mistakes can be made, and what's great about it.
Douglas Viviani and David Cohn every Saturday and Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. Everything old is new again here on 1340 KVGC. Douglas, have a great weekend.
We'll see you on the FM dial.
All right.